mode.
Hello everyone and welcome to our webinar today. Today we have Experlogix joining us for the webinar and they will be presenting on Enterprise CPQ, Powerfully Simple. And we ask that if you have any questions, please type them into the questions box and we will get them called out at the end of the webinar. And we do record our webinars, so if you want to listen to it again or share it with another colleague, you're more than welcome to. It will be available on our website later this week for you to do that. So now I will turn it over to Brian and he will start our presentation.
Excellent. Thanks, Angie. This is Brian McMurray with Experlogix. We're happy to be here today and to provide you some information about our CPQ product, which helps you as users deliver complex quotes in seconds rather than hours and days that we often see customers run into or companies run into. Let me just give you a little agenda on what we want to cover today. I'm going to be joined by Brian Zamaitis from our organization as well. I oversee our sales for the US area, and Brian is one of our solution architects that dives deeper into the product. We'll begin with my part of the presentation, and with that we're going to do kind of a solution overview, talk a little bit about CPQ, what it might mean to companies, and how they might find advantage in using our software. Talk through a little customer evidence so you can see how other customers are using our solution. And then the other Brian's going to do a demo, and we'll certainly provide time for Q&A at the end of the session. So let's start out with just what is CPQ. Some people in the industry understand this term very completely, but I don't like to assume that as I talk to an audience. So when we think about kind of the continuum here that a lot of companies go through in the process from a sales opportunity that they might be working on with a customer all the way to an order fulfillment of product and manufacturing. So oftentimes there's a gap in the middle of that continuum in standard out-of-the-box CRM and operations type ERP solutions where configure price quote is a part of a process that needs to be provided by another provider or software solution like ourselves. And so we feel that white space, I call it, between a CRM or sales quoting system and an ERP system where you actually make and fulfill product. So within that is our Experlogix CPQ solution. CPQ obviously stands for configure price quote, configuring a solution from different product sets and options, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that means and why that's important. Being able to price the solution appropriately. We get into a lot of complex scenarios where the pricing might not actually reflect just the simple addition of different pieces and their prices, that there might be more complex pricing to the product, and then deliver a quote fast and accurately to a customer. So that's what CPQ stands for and what it means and where it kind of fits into the process continuum in a typical sales to fulfillment scenario. So why is that complicated? It seems like quoting should be a fairly simple process, but there is, complication for a lot of customers to this particular process. Pricing might be based on many different variables. It might not be just a piece and piece price, but could be dimensional type pricing. There could be price breaks based on certain combination of components. So that can get very complicated. Another complication is tribal knowledge. We've all been in organizations where there's the expert within the sales organization that just might know what products are compatible with others and how to put together an accurate quote. Sales oftentimes has to go back to engineering to get more information and back and forth to get an accurate quote. What we're trying to do is provide a solution that allows you to bring that knowledge forward into the sales organization. Complications around option compatibility, that certain Components aren't compatible with others. Access to ERP information. What products might we have on hand would influence which products we want to include in a quote, and then just managing the overall discounting process so that you've got some control on that. If you've got salespeople that like to create their own discounts without any approvals or without even understanding or knowing what the gross profit margins on their quote might be, we try to solve that issue as well. So keys for us to a great quote are that it's fast, that salespeople have the right information at their fingertips, that they are able to put together an accurate quote and do that quickly out to a customer, that the quote is precise, that the pricing is accurate, the options are compatible from front to end, that it's sharp looking, that you're able to print a quote right out of the system that you can present to the customer, and that all of the costs and pricing are reflected to make that a profitable quote for the organization. So some of the benefits of our solution and how customers have been able to see those benefits around a lot of the features of the product is one that a lot of customers, they drastically reduce the time to generate a quote. So from days and hours of fighting through spreadsheets or just paper systems to be able to do that online and move that down to minutes and seconds. That the quote is perfect and profitable every time, that the options are all compatible, and that the overall cost is appropriate to the sale. That we automate production orders. So oftentimes, once a quote is accepted by a customer, to be able to move that quote into a manufacturing system requires the building of a bill of materials, routing instructions, and all of those pieces to be able to actually produce the item. We automate that in our process. As you build a quote, we're creating a bill of materials in the background. Our product is built specific for Dynamics applications. So if you're using a Dynamics product, it fits right into the overall solution and into that process. So it's a seamless integration, stores all of the data right within the Dynamics product. We leverage the portals, the tablet versions of the product, and we support a full Azure platform. So if you're utilizing those services, we support that. We have customers across a lot of different industries. We've put a slide together here of some that might be well-known names to you, maybe in your industry. CPQ, our product is often associated with manufacturing type companies because obviously there's a lot of custom manufacturing that goes into the process. So here's some names there. We'll talk about some more specifically, but what I really want to show in this slide is that our product can be used across a lot of different industries, so not just manufacturing. We have a lot of hardware and software companies that use it to configure quotes, financial service type companies. We've got apparel companies that use the product to configure anywhere from fireman suits to bulletproof vests. Professional services, where you're not necessarily configuring product, but you're configuring a set of services and a project to deliver those. Telecom companies as well, where there's a lot of maybe calculations involved in the services and products that they provide. So a wide variety of types of industries. Anytime complex quoting, complex pricing is involved, we're a very good fit. So let's talk through a few of those customers. One of our largest customers is PACCAR. They're one of the largest truck manufacturers in the world. The brands of Peterbilt and Kenworth are probably very familiar to all of us. And so they're using our product to configure trucks. They evaluated basically all of the CPQ solutions in the marketplace. And in the end, over 16 months of evaluation, they've selected our product. They're using it intensely in being able to really customize product. In the demo today, we'll show you kind of our standard demo is related to this PACCAR project where we will configure a truck for you. Malibu Boats is one of our longtime customers. They're the #1 wakeboarding boat manufacturer in the United States. I live in Minnesota where we have lots of lakes, and their boats are very prevalent when you go out in this area. They are using our solution at their dealer level. So as a customer, if you walk in and you want to buy a wakeboard boat, the dealer can go to a portal and enter that order, and you can visually even see that boat, what it would look like visually as you're building it out. There's a lot of compatibilities built in, so certain stereo systems and speaker mounts require certain types of wakeboard racks for those to work. You know, certain use cases would require certain engine performance or seat configurations. So all of that's built into the quoting tools so that the dealers can accurately quote solutions and have those built at the headquarters in Tennessee. TAS is another customer kind of outside the manufacturing industry. They're in the software industry, and they've actually gotten into a lot of the software that's being used for the self-driving cars. But they really need a configurator that could get out to their sales team, and that could be used globally, so it would address different pricing based on where the customer is. They went from Excel-based tools that were really difficult to manage and roll out any changes to the sales organization. It's hard to keep everybody on the same version of that. But with our solution now, they've gotten a very streamlined, eliminated duplicate entry, a step-by-step, so guided selling type approach that steps the salesperson through the configuration of the software and the different services that they provide. Also in this case, they really needed offline availability so their salespeople could build a quote regardless of where they were. So another great global customer of ours. Lastly, just another example, an HVAC service organization that delivers services to residential and commercial customers. They were very inefficient to start with, where they were reliant on the old binder catalogs to look up the information they needed to provide in a quote. Bought our solution. Again, they're using it for their mobile sales organization to be able to get out, and they've seen tremendous savings, as you can see here in the results, with those improved efficiencies and that seamless integration to the Dynamics products. So those are just a few examples of different customers across different industries that are utilizing our solution. At this point, we're going to do a product demo. I know Brian has been trying to connect, so I'm going to pause here and see from Angie if he was able to get in. There he is.
Yes, he should be able to get in now.
Oh.
Sorry, everyone. Little technical difficulty.
There we go.
Can you hear me okay? And I guess the other question is, can you see my screen?
Yes, to both.
Okay, good. Well, thanks everybody. As Brian had mentioned, I'm also with Experlogix, and what I'd like to do is just kind of take you through a short demo of our functionality or our solution. And what I'm going to do is, as you can tell right here, I am on the homepage of NAV 2018. This is where you can process all your sales orders. You can view what's ready to ship, all of your returns. What we're going to do is we're going to launch from a sales quote. So I'm going to go in and we're going to create a new quote. At this point, all you have to do is type in a custom number. Very simple. And if you'll notice right here up in the ribbon bar, we have some Experlogix buttons that are embedded into it. So I'm going to click configure. Now, as I open up, understand there's a tremendous amount of flexibility on how your system can be set up. Now, this is just one way. As this is a demo, we're going to be configuring a truck, but you do have a lot of flexibility. Also note that in the background, there's a lot of things that are already happening, and Experlogix is already taking over the automation. There's a rules engine that is working. And right now what we have here is we are on a model page. So we're going to be configuring a truck, and your salesperson knows which model they want to go to. What's important to understand is Experlogix is already pre-filtering and setting up the options that are according to each of these models. So when I click the 5,000, as you're going to see here in a second, it's not going to deliver up 6,500 model options or 7,500 model options. It's going to go straight to the 5,000. So I'm going to click here, and this is going to take us into the main user interface of Experlogix. So what I'm going to do, as I mentioned, is I'm going to create this quote. I'm going to configure a truck. And then what we'll do is we'll return back to nav. I'll show you the quote. I'll show you a bill of material, how we can print a document. And then what if the customer wants to quote a second way? I'll show you also how Experlogix can create side-by-side configurations. And then once the customer decides, we can activate the quote. So here we are in the main interface. And as I mentioned, you have a lot of flexibility on how we want to set up the system, right? So we click this, and this is this main interface. So keep in mind, all of this is out of the box, and I'm going to give you a quick tour. So this is the actual product configuration, and all of these categories on the side, like model, chassis, all of these has several different options that can be selected, and this can be defined by you. So if you want to jump down to batteries, I can select and I can go right down to batteries. So you can configure in whatever direction you want, right? Note also at the bottom, there is a status bar, and this is in the footer, and this is where you can embed critical calculations that you'd like to keep an eye on. So these are calculations that update in real time as you're building the quote. Some of our customers also like to put currency conversion. So like if you want to, translate between USD and Canadian, you can. And so, like I said, there's a lot of flexibility. So I'm going to click, we're going to go to the top of the model, way at the top here, at the base model. And note a couple other things that we have here. We also have, we can embed critical marketing specs in here. So I can pull up technical specifications. If your salesperson wants a slick video to pull up, you can select it here. But we've also got specifics about the particular engine, right? So you've got horsepower, peak torque, governed speed. What's important when you see that is as Experlogix is delivering up options, we go very granular in how we're delivering the options that are available to your customer, your salesperson. So as they're making selections, you'll see Experlogix filtering, hiding, and also displaying options as we move along, right? You also, what you can do is you can set up pre-options right here, or pre-selected options, and you have a quick view. So if you have a customer that wants to do a budgetary quote and you want to get in and out really quick, we can have some pre-selections that all you do is go in, you select the quick view, and then you save and close, and you can have a budgetary quote ready to go for your customer. But for us, in this particular situation, the customer wants to customize their engine or customize their product. And first, they're gonna, they wanna select an engine, right? So we're gonna go in here and I'm gonna pull up something different. So this brings up a search window and you got a huge set of options. What's important to note is it's not just sales codes and product IDs or SKUs. You've got, and the description, but you've got properties that we can go granular on. You've got governed RPM, you've got horsepower, peak torque. And what I can do is I can set up a set of filters here that filters down. So we decided to go, what is a peak torque that is greater than 1700, right? So you've got the capabilities to do keyword descriptions, and you can search and filter on those. So we're just going to select the first one. And what's important to watch here is you're going to see a rule fire. And there's a rules engine that's monitoring everything behind the scenes. So if there are any problems, you're going to get notified immediately. And notice what it's saying here is the peak torque 1750 is too high for this transmission. So basically what it's saying is we are matching property to property. It's not just a SKU or an item ID, but we go very granular, as I mentioned before, down to the peak torque. So now notice what happens. It flares in red. So it's telling you the salesperson cannot move on. I can't make any choices. I can't do anything else until I rectify this situation. I select it. And remember also I mentioned there are selections that as I'm making this, it's graying things out. So we can also make these disappear so the salesperson can't even select these. But these are all the unavailable options because they do not match what the requirements of this particular engine is. right? So it's looking for those discrepancies as we're moving along. Then what we'll do is we'll just continue to move on. So let's say you want to make a couple other selections. So we go down to the sleeper. Notice in the sleeper category, I need you to keep your eye on the screen because there's a couple things that are going to happen. Number one, we offer the ability to cross-sell and upsell. So if you have higher margin items that you want to keep an eye on or keep at top of mind awareness for your salesperson, we can show those. In this one, we're saying, well, here's an upsell opportunity. You make them comfortable and you can select or unselect these capabilities as you move along. So we're going to select these and then watch also what happens. We also now have some other options that have shown up. So now we've got some sleeper storage options. So we like to do this, we like to hide certain things so it doesn't muck up the UI. It makes it very simple, makes it very easy to move along. And I just make my selections, right? Also within Experlogix, we have powerful visualization techniques. So notice as I click custom paint, we integrate with the best of breed image rendering tools like Liquid Pixels and Adobe Scene 7. But notice as we make changes, the image is going to update, right? So if I go to red, and this is not just JPEG swapping, this is actual rendering that's happening right here. So if I make the selection, it's going to render it in real time as I'm moving along. Also, we've got, since we've selected red, we also build a dynamic bill of materials. So what happens is as I'm building the bill of materials, it's creating things in the background as if you had an engineer working for you. So as I make selections, it's dynamically building that bill of materials. So if I change the color to red, it's going to change the bill of materials to red. So also, and lastly, what I'd like to call your attention to before we go back into Nav is we're really strong at handling sophisticated calculations, right? So down here at the bottom, we've got this pricing summary. And we can control a lot of things. So you've got cost, sale, margin, tax, freight, all of those are capable, right? We can control the amount, like let's say the salesperson wants to give a discount. We can say, hey, we want to do a 10% discount, which is great. There's nothing else that needs to happen. But what if the salesperson gets really happy and decides, hey, I'm going to give a 50% discount? Notice what happens is now we have a reason for a discount. So there is requiring manager approval, and we could just say something as easily as this was a nice customer. We can trigger a workflow in Nav that allows us to basically send an automated email to the salesperson's manager to be able to trigger that workflow. But in this situation, we're not going to do it. We're just going to go back to a 10%, and then we can move on. Now at this point, we've made our selections. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Save and Close. So once I click Save and Close, what's happening here is, let me change it back to my 0%. And then what is going to happen here is it is going to push it back into, apologize, I hit the wrong button here. It's going to push it back into the system. Now, it's important to understand when it pushes back into the system, what it's doing. Experlogix is taking all that information and it's writing it back to the native nav quote in one click. And I want to repeat that. That's the native nav quote. It's not a proprietary table. It's not some magical quote factory in the cloud. It's written right back to where it belongs on the quote. So what this will do, this will give you the ability to generate pipeline or forecast quotes. So let's look at the quote here. Notice we have multiple lines. You can have one configuration session, but you can have multiple outlines. Like you can have the cab and wheelbase and the axles. You can have the tractor, the trailer. You can have a lot of that. But remember, all you got to do is configure once, but we can have multiple lines. These are all separate shippable items. You also have the capabilities that you can print a quote. So we use SQL reporting services where I can print up a Microsoft Word, save it to a PDF. You can have your logo, terms and conditions, basically the way your quote looks today. And if you want to make it an investment summary, you can add that. You can add questions, even with a marketing approved letter, right? Create a PDF or a Word, make some additional edits and send it off to the customer. So let's say we send the quote off to the customer and they say, I want to make some changes. So all I have to do is I can go back here in this configure button And I have some new capabilities here. I can edit it, I can delete it, or I can even duplicate it. So we have some salespeople that will do like a good, better, best in this scenario. Or let's say they're ordering 50 trucks and they want all the same colors with all the same logos. They just want to make a couple changes. This gives you those capabilities, right? But in our scenario, it's a customer that wants to make a couple changes, right? So we're going to go down. We're going to change. Let's say let's go down to our radio. Maybe custom paint. So we say, you know, initially we were red, but we want to make it blue. We want to add a CB radio. It's offering us an upsell. And then basically I'll just hit save. And then it'll take us right back to this page. Now notice you don't see a lot of differences here other than price. We have this compare all function where I select compare all, and it's going to show me all the differences that the salesperson made from the first and second time. A button they absolutely love is this show differences button. Now it shows the differences of what was the choices I made in the first one versus the choices that I made in the second one. So we close it. Salesperson says, you know, the customer says, I like the first one. We hit close and it pushes back into the system. At that point, then all you have to do is if the customer's approved, everything's ready and signed off, then all I have to do is click make order. And it will immediately convert it over to a sales order. Once it's in the sales order, we have this great little button that everybody loves here. And that is the ability to create a production order. So once it's in the sales system, you still can pull it up. You can make adjustments. You can make changes. Then it'll pull this screen. All I have to do is click this button right here and click create production order. And it will push the full bill of materials into the system. It will create it as an active production order so they can take it in the shop floor and begin manufacturing that product. So that's really the overall experience. And as I mentioned before, you know, you may have a lot of, you know, you might not be obviously configuring a truck, but we have the capabilities with, as Brian had mentioned, for several different industries. So we have some industries that, you know, configure, you know, discrete manufacturing like trucks or boats. You know, we do have some that are in the software that use our software to manage software and services. So there's a lot of capabilities that Experlogix has that can meet your business requirements. And that is the end of our tour. I guess we can pass it back over to Brian if we have any questions to manage that.
Yes, thanks, Brian. We do have some time left here, so if attendees do have any questions, please feel free to ask those or type them into the question dialog, whichever works better.
I'll give just a few moments for the attendees to do that, but in the meantime, I would like to talk to you about our upcoming webinars that you are more than welcome to look at on our website and register for those. We have a couple next week with Dynamics eShop, and they will be presenting on an integrated e-commerce for Nav and D365. And then we have Innovia's Steve Waltz, who will be doing a presentation on sales coaching. So his is titled Not Reaching Your Sales Quotas. Try using coaching to get you there. So if you're interested in either of those webinars, please register for those. And we also have our customer conference that is coming up in April 18th and 19th, and it's going to be at the Chula Vista Resort and Conference Center in the Wisconsin Dells. It is a free event for you to attend, so we encourage you to register for that. We'd love to have you there. And check out all of our other events that we are always updating on our website as well. Well, no questions have come through, so I just want to thank everyone for attending this webinar, And like I said, it is recorded, so it will be available later this week on our website for you to view again or share with any of your other colleagues and friends. And thank you to both presenters, Brian Zamitis and Brian McMurray, for presenting this webinar. And we look forward to seeing everyone on our next webinar. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.